Hi guys, welcome to Office Blokes React. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
Office Bloke Daz.
Collectively, we are the Office Blokes.
Yeah, correct.
I'm desperately trying my hardest to look less stupider today, so that's why I'm wearing a different hat.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
I knew there was something.
Something different about it today, yeah.
It's clean.
I thought you'd had a wash.
No.
No, come on.
I did, but I just jammed soap in my eye for ages.
Yeah, is that what it was?
Yeah, that's what
happened. You got shampoo in your eye.
Anyway, the 5 worst man-made disasters.
Ooh.
Dams bursting, maybe?
That's got to be up there, hasn't it? That's the first thing that springs to mind for me, like man-made.
Maybe oil spills?
Oil spills, yeah. Buildings collapsing, maybe. Poorly put together constructions, bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't know.
That's the only thing I can think of what you mentioned.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, let's get into it. The 5 worst man-made disasters.
There are a lot of things that happen on this planet that are simply out of our control. Try as we might to dominate everything around us. At the end of the day, we are constantly at the mercy of natural disasters. But not all disasters are the fault of nature. In fact, some of the most devastating disasters are simply the fault of human error and negligence. Had a little more care been taken, many of these catastrophes could have been avoided. From oil spills to chemical factories, here are 5 of the worst man-made disasters in human history. The Deepwater Horizon was a decade-old, semi-submersible drilling rig that was stationed in the Gulf of Mexico. The purpose of the structure was to drill an exploratory well over 18,000 feet below sea level. It was a fairly standard operation that was running successfully for many years. However, everything took a turn for the worst on April 20th, 2010. At 9:45 p.m. Central Time, a burst of water erupted from the marine riser and onto the rig. This was followed by a combination of mud, water, and worst of all, methane gas. It wasn't long after this that the methane gas caught fire and exploded. During all of this, 126 crew members were on board. They immediately knew something was wrong because they could feel 2 strong vibrations and the electric lights on board began to flicker. The crew members had less than 5 minutes to evacuate the structure. Out of the 126 people on board, 11 individuals lost their lives. By the time April 22nd came around, the entire rig had sunk into the sea. This was also the date in which the Coast Guard discovered that oil continued to leak from the rig at a rate of roughly 8,000 barrels per day. 2 remote-operated underwater vessels were sent to try to cap the well, but those efforts proved to be unsuccessful. Next, BP tried to place a 280,000-pound containment dome over the leak. While it is a technique that's useful in shallow water, it too failed here. It wasn't until July 15th, almost 3 months after the initial incident, that the well was finally closed and the leak stopped. An investigation into the incident soon followed. In June of 2010, the House Committee on Energy and Commerce said that BP should have used cement at the well. It would have cost the company $128,000 and would have taken between 8 and 12 hours to complete. A more thorough investigation found that 6 different operations, equipment functions, and tests ultimately led to the blowout in the 32 hours preceding the explosion. In July of 2015, BP agreed to pay $18.7 billion in fines, making it the biggest corporate settlement in the history of the United States.
Wow.
So what was the concrete? Was that in the manufacturing of the well or in the plugging up of the hole?
Probably plugging it.
Plugging it, I think.
Yeah, it's a cap it. That's what they do. They put concrete in it to cap it.
So they could have capped it quicker for relatively little
Sounds like
money.
it. Yeah. Why didn't they? I mean, it's absolutely bizarre, isn't it?
It's easy to say now after the event.
I suppose it is, but I mean, you'd think they'd go through all scenarios, doing something like that, which is highly dangerous anyway. Yeah. You think that must be in sort of like a business disaster sort of like plan, mustn't it? Where if it happens, this is what we need to do, and they've got the best technology to do it.
I don't think it's as easy as that though, is it? I think it's one of them where you look at it and they're probably meeting after 24-hour a day meetings going on to try and stop the leak.
Yeah.
And no one's. I don't think they would have said, "Oh, fucking hell, I forgot about that."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. That's why I don't
tried
stand out
switching it
so
off.
so long. Yeah.
Switch off.
Just
Yeah.
turn the
Unplug it.
tap.
Yeah, the stopcock you put just before the leak.
Drain the water.
On the night spanning December 2nd and 3rd, 1984, one of the worst industrial disasters in the history of the world took place. It was on that evening an accident occurred at the Union Carbide pesticide plant located in Bhopal, India. This event released a minimum of 30 tons of an incredibly toxic gas known as methyl isocyanate, in addition to numerous other poisonous gases into the local environment. Sadly, many shanty towns were located in the immediate vicinity of the plant. In total, over 600,000 people were exposed to a deadly cloud of gas that night.
Wow.
These particular gases tend to remain fairly low to the ground. Countless people reported feeling nauseous and that their eyes and throats began to burn, and unfortunately, many people lost their lives in the aftermath. Estimates of the gas leak's death toll range from 3,800 to 16,000. And many people still suffer physical and emotional scars from that night. However, much of the health data related to the incident is still not available. The Indian Council of Medical Research was forbidden from publishing data in regards to the gas leak until 1984. The disaster occurred as a result of water entering a tank filled with methyl isocyanate. This led to a chemical reaction causing the temperature inside the tank to reach over 392 degrees Fahrenheit. There are two main arguments as to why this happened. The first is that the Union Carbide India Limited chemical plant was already in very poor condition, was undermaintained, and had broken dozens of safety regulations prior to this incident. The other side of the argument is that it is not physically possible for water to have entered the tank on its own, and that human effort had to have played a role. Criminal and civil cases were filed in the United States against UCC and Warren Anderson, who was the CEO of the company at the time of the disaster. However, these cases were repeatedly redirected and dismissed to Indian courts several times from 1986 to 2012. As of 2018, efforts to clean up the area remain stagnant.
Wow.
I've not heard of that one before.
I think I've watched a documentary on it.
I've heard of Bhopal, definitely.
Yeah.
It's that's a big death toll there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, I think it was a documentary on it, and it was going on about the lawsuits in there, and I think corruption was involved, wasn't it?
Well, by the sound of it, I think it must have been, yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me.
And
Looking
it sounds
at
like it's
that.
still going on at the moment as well,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Not even
Yeah.
cleaned the place up properly yet.
No.
So, yeah, bad one.
Chemical plant explosions happen all over the world, like this one that occurred at a Texas chemical plant back in 2013. But one of, if not the worst to ever happen, was the Jilin chemical plant explosion. The Jilin chemical explosion actually consists of a series of blasts that took place on November 13th, 2005, in Jilin City, China. Over the period of a single hour, numerous explosions occurred at the number 101 petrochemical plant that resulted in 6 deaths and dozens of injuries. 2 days after the explosions, it was determined that the accident site had a nitration unit for aniline equipment. One tower was jammed up and not handled properly, which ultimately led to the explosions. These blasts were so powerful that they completely shattered windows that were at least 650 feet away. Fires built up from the blasts that were not put out until the following day. More than 10,000 individuals had to be evacuated out of fear that more explosions could have been imminent. While initial reports thought that the explosion could have occurred as a result of terrorism, the company stated that it was a result of a chemical blockage that had not been fixed. The fallout from the explosions lasted more than just that day. It significantly polluted the nearby Songhua River. An estimated 100 tons of pollutants, including nitrobenzene and benzene, entered the river. Exposure to benzene has been linked with leukemia and reduced red blood cell counts. The contaminants gradually flowed into the Strait of Tartary and then, eventually, into the Sea of Japan. The effects of the explosion also made their way to Russia. On December 16th of that year, the toxic slick that had entered the water arrived in the city of Khabarovsk. Granted, the slick was severely diluted by this point, but Russia prepared by digging extra wells and storing clean water before the slick reached the city. The Great Smog of 1952 refers to a significant air pollution event that overtook the city of London in early December of 1952. It was marked by a period of unusually cold weather, including windless and anti-cyclone conditions. However, those factors didn't create the event all their own, or else this entry wouldn't make it on the list of man-made disasters. Much of the smog was due to collected airborne pollutants, mostly due to the city's heavy reliance on coal. While there had been smog events in the past, nothing was on the same scale as this. It resulted in a huge disruption by limiting people's visibility. The smog even made its way into indoor areas. Government reports that were made in the weeks that followed found that nearly 4,000 people died as a result of the smog, while an additional 100,000 people suffered illnesses. It was the worst smog event in the country's history. So much so that it led to many changes in regulations and practices. The most important item to come out of this event is the Clean Air Act of 1956, which introduced numerous measures to severely limit air pollution in the area. There were mandates calling for smokeless fuels, particularly in high-population regions. The bill has undergone modifications over the years, as well as a full repeal when the Clean Air Act came into effect in 1993. Luckily, nothing like London's Great Smog has occurred since.
That was an issue in Manchester as well, wasn't it?
I think I remember my dad telling me about it once years ago.
My dad's told me about it
yeah.
being a regular
Yeah, I
occurrence.
think a lot of industrial towns, I think that is the problem that certainly gone up to the 50s and 60s, I suppose, anyway.
I know you've got to use smokeless fuels around here if you've got a wood burner.
I think you have now, haven't you? I think it's a lot
What's a
different,
smokeless fuel?
You can get coal, but it's like smokeless coal.
Right.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't put out, I don't know what it puts out, but it's just not the smoke or the
So
the
used
soot.
to be like trains and all the power stations, I suppose, didn't it? Burning coal left, right, and centre. So, but obviously they're moving away from that now, which is clearly good for the, air quality, I suppose, isn't it? But it used to be a big problem, big problem. Then it was down to the weather as well, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Depending what the weather was
Wind,
like,
yeah,
just,
whether
it could sort of like dissipate. But
Usually it'll blow it out of London over to all the surrounding
everywhere
people.
probably Sadiq Khan probably had something to do with that.
The Minamata disaster has one of the most ominous openings out of any man-made disaster ever. In the mid-1950s, people in the small Japanese town of Minamata began to notice cats going crazy and falling into the sea. Many believed the cats were intentionally committing suicide. However, the ailment that afflicted the
Cats are doing harikari. The dagger across the stomach.
I just don't. It's kind of a weird one. That cats falling into the sea from where?
I know, yeah.
You have to go to the sea, wouldn't you?
They were all just standing on cliffs.
Yeah.
I know,
Just,
yeah. That's bizarre.
The cats were intentionally committing suicide. However, the ailment that afflicted the cats soon made its way to people. Residents reported feeling numb in the lips and limbs. Many began to have problems seeing or hearing, and just like the cats, many people appeared to be going crazy and shouting uncontrollably. Something was affecting their nervous systems. It took until July of 1959 for the source of these ailments to be located. It all came down to people developing high levels of mercury poisoning, which has since been named Minamata disease. The immediate attention turned to a huge petrochemical plant run by the Chiso Corporation that was dumping large amounts of mercury into the Minamata Bay. When the fishermen protested the Chiso Corporation, the corporation made people sign deals. These documents stated that the company would compensate individuals for their illnesses, but they would not accept any present or future liability. A lot of townspeople, assuming this would be the only way to receive any amount of compensation, signed the paperwork. It took until 1968 for Chiso to stop poisoning the waters around Minamata. In 2004, Japan's Supreme Court ordered the government to pay 71.5 million yen, which comes out to about 703,000 American dollars, to the disease victims of Minamata. In
Wow.
2010, Chiso was ordered to pay an additional 2.1 million yen in monthly medical allowances for those still suffering. All those decades later, and that small town still feels the impact of one company's negligence. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to click the link on screen to check out our video about the 5 worst natural disasters in human history.
I wonder if the people that signed away the rights to compensation didn't get anything in that, the High Court ruling.
Why would you sign away your rights?
Well, because that's what he said. They got locals to sign a thing to say that
Right.
there's no
They'd accept a
liability.
certain
Yeah.
compensation, but then they're not accepting liability.
Yeah, Chernobyl wasn't on there, was it? And also
No,
another one in
surprising.
Japan not long ago, didn't it? They caused a tsunami.
Oh no,
It was like
the tsunaami caused it.
The tsunami caused it, wasn't it?
the
The
nuclear power
nuclear
plant.
power stand. That's right. Yeah.
What was it called?
Can't remember. Yeah, it was a tsunami that caused it, wasn't
It
it?
was,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, Chernobyl, I thought that'd be in there, definitely.
Was that human error? Well, it'd have to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I think it was,
think
wasn't
so.
it? Yeah, I think it was, wasn't it?
I can't remember what the power plant's called. That's
No,
really
me neither.
annoying.
Me neither.
'Cause it's still an ongoing thing, isn't it? It's still sort of
I
leaking.
think with the oil spills, there's been a few of those over the years as well, haven't
Yeah.
there? Quite a
Yeah.
few, I think. But yeah, some good ones. Well, I say good ones. I mean, not good, if you know what I mean. But
some of your
interesting.
favourites didn't make the list, Mike.
There's a few chemicals involved in there, and that's for
Well,
sure.
it's
but
usually it's like a double whammy, isn't it, with the chemicals? Not only having like an explosion, maybe, but then you're seeping all kinds of shit into the air.
that's it,
aren't
and
you?
then it's long-term illnesses and stuff like
Yeah.
that as well that people can get as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
So yeah, not good.
Wow.
Yeah, enjoyed that though. Good information.
Yeah,
Hope you guys enjoyed it too. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.